the first thing that I'd like to do, and this is based on a conversation I had with somebody that the town manager followed up on. I'd like the town to send a letter to the district attorney, who then may forward the letter to the attorney general to consider a grand jury process related to Government Code 3060 to look at accusations against a city official for willful misconduct in office. So I don't know if we need to, it would be a grand jury request that's allowed in Government Code 3060. And I don't know if we can just do that or if we have to agendize this for discussion.
I'll refer to Ken, and then if Ken can't answer that, Jose, and then we can bring it back to council.
Vice Mayor Salmon, I can't answer that question, and I'm not sure if Town Attorney Sanchez can answer that question as it relates to his firm's potential conflict with matters pertaining to Mr. Foppoli. Jose, is that correct? If you don't want to say anything, you can nod your head.
No, I think, but that's something that I think we could look at. I know that Joan has been also involved, but why don't we go ahead, and I think this is enough direction if the council's okay with, in order for Ken to go back and figure out what the process is and what council approval, if any, is required. And then if it is required, obviously bringing it back to council.
Okay.
So yeah, that makes sense to me. It may come back to council and be put on our next agenda. It could be on consent item, but just however we want.
For clarification,
I would just.
Yes, Esther.
Sorry, I would just state one thing, and I believe that the Sonoma County DA's office is conflicted out, and so I believe that any request would have to go directly to the Attorney General's office.
Yeah, that was what I thought.
Thank you for that, Esther.
One quick question for council. So, if in consultation with Joan Castman, we conclude that it isn't necessary to bring an item back to council, we can go ahead and prepare a letter with this direction from council. Would you like me to proceed towards that end, or would you like it to come back before we send a letter?
I personally would like it to proceed if we could.
Esther?
I believe I may have a conflict on weighing in on this, so I will not weigh in on this, whether or not this proceeds forward.
And my recommendation would just be for Ken to find out what the process is, and then potentially, either come back to council or work with the attorney in order to make sure that could happen. But possibly getting more information would be worthwhile on this point at this stage, Ken.
Yep.
Okay, I have a second item when you're ready, Ken.
I think just for clarification, then I think this is at the very least, Deb, this would be a request for to agendize it at the least, and that there's no objection to that I've heard. So that would be the direction, and then we'll get more information. It may go a different way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Council? Okay, Deb? Okay.
So my second item is I would like to agendize as soon as possible reconsideration of our districting in Windsor. And I would like to reconsider our 4 districts. I would like to move toward 5 districts and have the council discuss that, and then have no elected mayor position, which means then we would need to hire the demographer, work with, and see if we need to work with new census data or not. And I'd like to make sure that this process is complete well before the election of November of 22.
I would be supportive of this item.
And I would too. I think we're going to start not in the fairly near future. We're going to start looking at census data on the 4 districts. So I think this would fit well within that process. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but I think the census data should be coming out fairly soon.
So it's my understanding the census data may be delayed, and I think it's of an urgent nature that we take care of this issue well before November 22, I'm asking for the
Sure.
town staff to start agendizing this, at least for discussion at our end as to whether we all want to do that, whoever's on council at that point. But I think it's something we need to work on as soon as possible and as quickly as possible because it all
Yeah.
takes time.
Could, I don't see any objections to that. Could well, go ahead and I'll ask if Esther has, I'll have some suggestions for agenda items when my turn. Esther?
Yes, thank you. So I do have some agenda items that I would also like to be added. I did actually make this request of our town manager, and I believe that Deb had supported the request, but I also just want to state it today. And that is, in light of current circumstances, I would like to have our town look into policies and procedures that we can put into place if an elected official is accused of misconduct, looking at a system as to what kind of investigation will take place and what would be done with those findings. I would also like our town to look into internal practices for addressing emotional and psychological harm and trauma caused to our internal organization as a result of this is a result of any future type of misconduct that could affect the organization or the town, as well as practices and procedures and community outreach to promote healing and the rebuilding of trust with the community. And one thing that I would specifically perhaps point our town in a specific direction. I know that after the officer involved shooting death of Andy Lopez, the county did form what was the name of the organization? It was the group that dealt with looking at policies and procedures and also promoting community healing. I know that group actually did have some community healing events in the community. And so perhaps they may have something that we can look at to model or to use as a model as we move forward here. But again, my request is not limited to that. It's a very broad request just to see what other communities have done in these areas, not limited to the state of California. We can look outside of the state of California as well. Thank you.
And I will,
Okay.
Esther and I did speak and I indicated my support and I will do that now publicly.
Okay. If I could just make a comment, would it be, can we have this come back to council when we have a fourth council member? That would be only my request, if that's possible. We should have that council member at the end of May, first meeting in June, I would hope. And is that something we could consider, or can we leave that up to our manager?
So my only request is that this information that the gathering process of this information begin. We don't necessarily have to vote on anything, but I do believe that there's an urgency here, and I would really like to at least see some of the work being done in terms of gathering this information to bring back to council.
Okay.
And I would add that I've been, people in the community have reached out to me, and I know there's at least one specific person that's coming to mind who did not know of this request, or that Esther would bring this up tonight, and he offered to help conduct, and is sort of a citizen, but is very well versed in event planning and has done that for major corporations and lives in Windsor now, and was willing to assist in whatever we came up with in regards to community healing events. He had some ideas. He's very creative, and so I'll give his name to the town manager at some point. So if there are people who would like to assist with this and they might have creative ideas, that they could be involved.
That sounds great.
If I could add just one more thing along this, the discussion of this agenda item, I would also welcome the public. If the public has ideas on moving forward with any recommendations, ideas, highly encourage members of the public to please forward information to us on all of the items that we've discussed, including community healing. We really welcome any ideas, any discussion. So I really encourage members of the public to please contact us and send us your ideas and your thoughts. Thank you.
Great. That sounds like the direction is that staff can kind of start the process of bringing this forward so we can look at it. I appreciate that.
Vice
Other
Mayor Salmon, if I
Yes,
could just
Ken.
ask for clarification, is the council's expectation we give a report at the next meeting, or are you just authorizing me to go ahead and start putting together this information and bring an item forward after we have a new council member? I'm not clear. We've already started to collect some of the information in anticipation of this request. I just don't know if collecting information is a good start until we have a new council member seated, or if you actually want an item to come to council right away.
It might be good to get a progress report, like in your town manager report, maybe something as simple as that. If you've made any headway on anything in particular, just informal.
Or even a status update, even an agenda item, just a status update, so that, because I believe that there is great public interest in this. And so that way the public is also informed earlier in the meeting than waiting later in the meeting when we have the town manager's report.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And the public could also make recommendations after they hear some of what is presented.
Right, okay.
So could we ask Ken to address this at the beginning of the meeting, much like we've asked him for the status of the Littons? Would that be appropriate? Would that work for the
That'd be
council?
perfect, yeah.
Ken, would you understand what?
Yeah, so there'd be another standing agenda report item or report out after the Litton item, potentially just status of efforts to, review and bring forward an item to council to discuss the list of items Councilmember Lemus identified. Yeah, I think we can do that. I know we have a formal agenda, set by rules. I don't know if Maria, Jose, you can chime in. Can we simply add that item at the request of council? I'm happy to do it. I just want to make sure, the expectations are clear.
So I think we could take a look at that. I think also, if not, we could also move up the city manager report, the town manager report, moving it up and having the council say changes to the agenda, moving that up. We could also do it that way. That way, it's up front. I get the idea of not waiting until the end of the meeting, so we could definitely work with that.
Okay. Second, is that work for council?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I had an item to just keep on the burner was one that was suggested, and that was the campaign finance limits. We may have some examples of campaign finance limits in neighboring communities that we could look at, and may not take as much work as we think, but obviously it would be a public process. And the other one relates a little bit to Deb's request to look at going to 5 districts in the district question. I'm wondering if we might consider, as we move through that process, looking at the possibilities of a charter. With a charter, we could, we might be able to solve some of our problems with the districting. I don't want to talk too much about that, but one of the things with the district and the at-large mayor was that everybody could vote every 2 years, as you recall. And if we go to 5 districts, we somewhat lose that. And maybe through a charter, we could address some of the problems that we're having, that I feel we're having with that. So is that something that we could kind of add to that discussion, just to kind of get a background of what it might mean?
Sure, because I don't understand really the difference between the charter and general law as much as I should. So that would be a good discussion to have. Yeah,
well, simply Petaluma and Santa Rosa have charters, and Petaluma has an elected mayor through their charter, and Santa Rosa has a 2-year term for their mayor through their charter, which is is not like a general law, but that's just some things. So fine, I can you.
Yeah,
We
I
just
just,
we just saved you 2 more helpings. I'm sure you're happy about that. You'll be fully satisfied.
so no, it's great. All of these items we absolutely can do for council. I just ask for some of your patience. We need to get our budget adopted. We need to get through an election, and we might be launching a recall election process potentially. So just keep that in mind. And then the other thing, I feel it's my duty just to make council aware that the process of reforming districts is a budget item. There is expense for the demographer. There is attorney time involved. So, we will propose that. We'll put a number into the budget along with some of the costs, that are going to be incurred to explore some of the strategies council expressed an interest in. The tax items, will be, some budget expenditures there too. So we'll try to get numbers, estimates of what those costs will be so you can understand that. And we will look at if we can move forward. I don't know if it makes sense to, move forward ahead of the redistricting. I hear Councilmember Fudge and council wanting to move forward as quickly as possible. I'll work with the town attorney on figuring out, if we can start moving forward to some extent while we wait for that updated census data.
Anything further on this agenda item, council? Okay, so I think we'll move to item 14, town manager's report.
I'm going to be busy these next few months. I don't have any report this evening. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
You were busy before we added all this. Just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, FWIW.
I do want to say one thing, actually, Vice Mayor, if I may, is just to thank the council for continuing with business so quickly after, this traumatic events of the last couple of weeks have unfolded. I know there was some who suggested, we not hold these meetings. Personally, I feel it's important that we show the community that we can move forward with business. We're not going to allow ourselves to be paralyzed by this. And I know it's very awkward to come forward and have, business discussions with everything that's going on. And I just want to thank you for, showing leadership, in my opinion, by moving business of the town forward and continuing with our business. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ken, any further comments from council before I move to adjourn? Just like to always thank our community for their involvement, and they stepped forward and allowed us to continue with business. So thank you, community. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, council, for working with me and experience the stumbles and tumbles.
Good job, Sam.
Meeting adjourned.